Project Power. This is a Netflix movie starring Jamie Foxx, Dominique Fishback, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt about a pill that's being distributed throughout New Orleans that for 5 whole minutes gives people superpowers. And you have a cop played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a dealer played by Dominique Fishback, who are trying to stop the distribution of this drug. And you have a man played by Jamie Foxx who's trying to hunt down the suppliers of this drug because he believes that the corporation that distributes this pill called Power is responsible for the kidnapping of his daughter. This movie weaves quite a tangled web. I wanted to see this movie because I wanted something to watch, and I like the cast. I've been, complimentary of Joseph Gordon-Levitt before. If you saw my review of 7500, this is a guy who's one of my favorite actors, in my opinion, one of the most likable, best actors working today, and he plays a cop in this. He played a cop in The Dark Knight Rises, and I watched this movie at points, I was like, hey, that's John Blake, so that's what happened to Robin after Batman left Gotham. I did get into it because I like watching that dude on screen. I think he's a great performer. I wanted to like this movie because I like the premise. I think it's a unique, original idea, and I was rooting for it. And yet I watched it, and as much as I wanted to like it, I found myself rather underwhelmed. Now, it is not, and I have to make this known, it is not as bad as some of the crap I've reviewed on here so far. It definitely has its merits, but overall, I found myself underwhelmed by it, and it takes me back to something I said in my Artemis Fowl review, which is, to me, like one of the best videos I've ever done on any subject. Not to pat myself on the back too much, but I felt like that review came out really well. And I brought up in that review that a great movie is the result of a whole lot of people doing their jobs right, and a bad film is the result of a whole lot of people not showing up to play. But sometimes you have a film where there's a lot of pieces in place that should make this work, and yet there's just 1 or 2 major issues that really bog it down, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this review. But I'm going to start with what I liked. I think these performances are good. I think Jamie Foxx is always likable. This newcomer, Dominique Fishback, she gives a good performance. I've never seen her in anything before, but I think she's got a bright future. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is always great. I mean, he keeps you going even in the moments where things get a little bit ridiculous. He's always magnetic. And early on, I was with this thing because I liked how it looked. I liked the premise, but this film is directed by the guys who are actually responsible for the documentary Catfish, which has become a remarkably influential documentary from about 10 years ago. It went on to have a TV series, and these guys went on to direct a few theatrical films as well. This is the first one of their theatrical films that I've actually seen, but it looks good. There's some really beautiful, breathtaking shots of New Orleans. There's some great cinematography, some great camera work. The camera never stops moving. The style is very heightened, but it's not obnoxious with it. It's like these guys are almost like Safdie Brothers light. These guys have a very interesting style, and I look forward to seeing what other films they direct after this. This film is very competently made. I like the premise. I want this to work so bad because I love seeing unique takes on superpowers or the superhero genre. I think that's something that this genre desperately needs, and I always root for it. And I wanted this thing to succeed, and for the first half, I was with it, and then it really starts to go downhill, and the reasons for why it doesn't work and the reasons why overall I can't recommend this movie are pretty simple. This is not a good script. There's a lot of major issues with this screenplay. I'll start with the biggest and most glaring one. While I think these performances are really excellent, these characters are way too thin to really be likable. And that is, to me, the most important part of filmmaking. Like, people will ask me, hey, Chris, what kind of movies do you like? And my response is, I like any movie that has good characters in them. Like, I can watch 1917 and enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed the first Transformers because both those movies set up a world with characters that I enjoy watching on screen. Here, they don't really have much of a personality. You don't really get to know them very much. The only character that you really get to know or like at all is Dominique Fishback's character, but the movie doesn't really focus on her. The movie focuses more on Jamie Foxx, and Jamie Foxx, while he's good, is written as kind of a one-note character. Everything is very grim and gruff. He delivers all his lines like this, as he has a tendency to do, and that's not his fault, because Jamie Foxx is always an excellent performer, and you like watching him on screen. It's just that character, I feel like, is kind of thinly written. Tonally, the script is bad. Like, there's moments where it is, like, gritty street drama, and you get some background into Dominique Fishback's character, and you're like, wow, this is getting very deep. Like, this is deeper than I expected with this premise. And then it'll go back to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's very thinly written, and there's these weird tonal shifts. Like, there's these moments where it's being really grim and gruff and dark, and then there's like these random moments of dark comedy or comedic relief, and you watch and you're like, wait, was that supposed to be funny? Because that felt really, really out of place. And the script in general, outside of a unique premise, feels like the first draft of a script. There's not enough character development for you to really latch onto. There are a few other issues. I think this movie, and this is rare that I say this, I think this movie could have used a bigger budget because a lot of these effects just, they're cartoonish and they're really bad. And when you have a premise like this, it having bad CG, it does suck you out of the movie. I wish they could have either gone the more practical route with some of their effects or increased the budget and had some better CG, because as it is, the movie looks kind of silly. But outside of the script being really wonky, another massive issue that I had with it is that, God, I just felt like they could have done so much more with this premise. And the movie it kept reminding me of throughout this whole thing was the 2011 movie with Bradley Cooper called Limitless, which is a great film. That's a film about a struggling author who takes a pill that allows him to access 100% of his brain. But that movie stretches that premise 1,000,000%. You got this dude writing books, you got him getting in fights, you got him maybe murdering people, not to spoil anything, you got him running for office, cheating in the stock market. Like, that movie has this unbelievable style to it, and Bradley Cooper is so good, and the writing for that character is so unique that you just, it's a magnetic movie. It's one of my favorite movies, like one of the most underrated movies of the last decade. They did everything with that premise, and here, it's like you have something that is really unique. Superpowers for 5 minutes. You can have guys bouncing off of walls, running through walls, breaking cars in half, turning into massive flesh-eating robots. I don't know what you could have done with this, and yet for the most part, it's worn pretty thin. Like, they don't really do a whole lot with what is a unique premise, and I wonder if the budgetary restraints kind of held it back. I could see a lot of people liking this movie more than I did, but as it is, I felt like it ended up being kind of a lame duck of a movie. The ending didn't really win me over, and by the second half of the film, I didn't care enough for these characters to really be that invested in the viewing experience. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, but I do think there will be people who will enjoy it. I wish I could have enjoyed it more. I just feel like they could have used 1 or 2 more drafts with its script writing, and this thing could have been a really special, unique little Netflix film, but as it is, I just found it kind of underwhelming, and I was disappointed by it. Okay, so you can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014. The link to my Twitter bio is in this description. Let's get to 1,000 subs. Click that like button, click that subscribe button. Let's get there. We are so close. I believe 976 as of the time of this recording. I'd really appreciate you subbing and spreading the word. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and happiness.